Newton, take our video off.
Evening.
Hi there.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Well, thanks. I went out and walked the perimeters of the court afterwards. So just to make sure I knew what we were talking about. I'm going to send a letter to you rather than have it come from Scott. I think it might make more sense if you're okay with that.
Sure, that's fine.
Okay, I'll send it over in the morning first thing.
We are live, just remember.
Yep, I know. But I'm speaking vaguely and ambiguously, so it's okay.
Good evening.
Hi, Jerry.
Hi, Joanne. How are you?
Good. Do I look like I'm in a dark room? Because otherwise, if I have the light on, then it makes everything all glossy. So it makes me, I guess it doesn't really matter, but it drives me nutty.
Yes, it looks dark, Joanne, but the same thing, mine looks too light and I look like my face is painted red or something, but who cares?
Well, I'll turn the light back on. We'll see.
See what you look like with your light on. Maybe you'll have a red face like me. How are you doing, Neil?
I'm fine. I'm fine. I got a call. I think I told you this, and I talked to Scott, so he's got the name and number of our fellow from Webster to after hours on the pad, which I walked over and noticed. I think I must have walked by it 5 or 6 times and didn't realize it was there, but that's a great spot for it.
Isn't that? Our friends live across the street in the Ashford, and they're so excited that that'll be in their front window.
That is nice. It will be very nice.
I wonder is ours coming at the same time?
That's what they're trying to do. Is they're trying to use one crane to do it all. Apparently, they can save money if they do it that way.
Yeah,
cheaper on insurance. So yeah,
that's what I understood. It'll be fun to have those and to celebrate with them. If it comes before Christmas, we can put a big bow on that earth rabbit.
Oh, that'd be fun.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yes, that would be.
Big Christmas present to the community.
There you go.
Hey, Joanne, is Dale with us tonight? No? Okay.
Good evening. How's everybody doing?
Fine,
Good,
thank you.
Emerson. How are you?
Good. All right.
Hello.
Hey, Karen.
Hi, Karen. Hey, Emerson,
Yes.
do you have any like cookies and candy and stuff at the ministries that we could use if we decide to give out some senior gifts?
Do we have any cookies and candies?
Yeah, something that, you know, would, or soup or canned fruit.
Oh, we might have some canned fruit. The little cups.
Yeah, you got
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. How many do you need?
I don't know, but if we decide, oh geez, if we decide to do that, I'll let you know. It would
Okay.
just
Yeah.
be a
That's.
little bit. We're not going to
Yeah.
do a big deal.
Okay. Yeah. I think we might have some of those canned. I mean, not canned, but little
I
plastic
can't
cups.
hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Hold on.
Emerson, can't hear you.
I can hear you, Emerson.
Okay.
Mayor, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes. Can you hear me?
I can. Mayor, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can.
Can you hear Emerson?
There we go.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, just let me know. I'm almost positive that we have some of those cups.
We have a few people on our senior gift list, and we're not doing those big senior packages that we've done every year. But there are a couple of folks that I'd like to be able to, you know, take a little gift bag with a few things in it, and maybe a little fruit and some whatever else I come up with.
Yeah, I got plenty of toys if you want to give them a toy to play with.
Now
So.
these are seniors.
Oh, let them play. What's that? I
got-
saw one to play the. They had to put one hand on the red dot, one hand on the blue dot. I forgot what you call it.
Do you
Twister.
have
Twister, yeah, Twister.
Oh, Twister.
You know what scares me is I knew that right away.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll bet David Franklin doesn't know what Twister is.
Oh yeah, I used to play Twister all the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. Who are we missing? Oh, here comes Dale. We're missing Laura. All right. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Good. Katie's there. All right. Hi, Kate.
Hi.
All right, I think I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. It is 6:30. I think we have everybody here, and we can go through is there anything on that huge regular agenda that anyone needs to talk about? If not, we'll go around to the meeting issues and updates, and I'm just going to go around to whom I see up here. Emerson, you're first on my list. Do you have any meeting or issues or updates?
Nothing to offer this tonight, Mayor.
Okay. Karen, Alexander? Go ahead. Do you have any meeting issues or updates?
Well, I attended the library board meeting, and the conversation was primarily around the, they were closing again.
Yeah.
And that's the consensus of most of the county municipal libraries. One of the things I learned was that basically Webster and U City stayed open longer than any of the other libraries, but they were deciding to close. There was a little angst about that. And one of the things came up, they were speaking about the new sign that they're putting in front of the library.
Mm-hmm.
And when they initially went for the permit to get that, they wanted to do an electric sign, but they were told they couldn't do an electric sign. But what was just, I guess what I have a question about is that we allow the electric sign for churches and for the school district. So I was just a little puzzled, and I guess I have to dig it out somewhere, and that's 3-page, 3-inch thick book. But why would it not be allowed for the library when it's allowed for the church and school?
That's a question that Mara Perry can answer for you.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Mara's on here. Maybe she can answer that for us.
So Karen, the way that our code is written, it does not allow it for essentially anyone. However, due to federal court cases, schools and religious institutions are ones that, unless there is something related to life or health or safety, we cannot enforce our codes against them. So with the churches, they are allowed to have them. They're not allowed to have them change multiple times. There's a few other key things in terms of the safety at the intersections. But legally, we cannot say no to the schools or the churches.
Okay, and the reason we do say no to anything that's not schools and churches is what?
Because our codes don't allow them. Our codes prohibit
them.
What?
Based on what? I mean,
Public safety.
Public safety.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the theory is if you're driving by and you can read them, it distracts you from the road. Good, bad, or indifferently. I mean, you can make that argument about many things, but that's why it's there. And again, schools and churches because of First Amendment rights.
Okay.
We can't enforce it against them.
Thank you.
David, you're next on my screen here.
Nothing to add tonight, Mayor. I would say I would like us to revisit golf carts and the legalization of those good things throughout the streets of Webster Groves.
All right, let's see. I think that's probably a good idea since we've had that come forward, and maybe Dale can update us at our next work session about where that is and what we need to do if we're thinking of changing anything or what the recommendation is. We probably need a pretty thorough discussion around that. Okay, is that okay with you, David?
Oh, that would be wonderful. I appreciate it.
Pam?
No, nothing to report.
Okay, Sarah?
No updates.
Okay, Laura? Laura?
Nothing for me, thank you.
Okay. Neil?
Just briefly, as I said to you, Mayor, we got a call from Webster University. They have put out the pad for the after hours sculpture that's going to go on Lockwood. That's ready to go. We're trying to arrange the crane so we can move both art pieces at the same time. And hopefully it'll be in place before Christmas.
It's good. Put a ribbon around it.
Mm-hmm.
Katie, do you have anything?
No, Mayor. Thank you.
And Joanne?
Yes, I just have one thing. So yesterday was the deadline for me to submit the information for the CARES money from St. Louis County. And I did submit it, but the process was very cumbersome. Initially, I had staff create me spreadsheets and all kinds of information thinking that that was all that they needed. But it went so far as I had to individually enter employee names and just a lot of information. It took me many hours yesterday to get it done, but I did get it done on time. But they also asked for information that really surprised me. They wanted me and every other municipality that submitted information on benefits, they wanted actual invoices for those benefits, which I provided to them. So for example, the medical insurance, the loggers contributions, all those kinds of things. I found it kind of interesting, but in any event, it is submitted, so they should have everything that they need.
You had to do all of that on your birthday, Joanne?
Yes.
I know, you were going to take the day off.
Yeah. Well, thank you for doing that. And it's a huge benefit to obviously Webster Groves.
Yep. It's over $1.5 million. So Joanne, thank you. Thank you. Most appreciated.
Thanks, Joanne.
I have one thing that I want to bring up. because the state legislature is going into session soon, and I can tell you from the Muni League, the Missouri Municipal League, the Missouri Mayors United, everybody's top priority is Wayfair and getting that internet sales tax passed in Missouri, because we're only one of 2 states that does not allow for collection of that, or total collection of internet purchases. Now, here's the trick. The trick is that if that is passed this spring, which we hope it is by the legislature, we cannot collect anything unless we have a use tax in place. And many of the cities around us have already gone to the ballot and had a use tax passed. So when the internet sales tax, which we hope becomes legitimate, they will be able to tap into that. We can't. And so I am going to suggest that at our next work session, we have a bit of a discussion about that use tax, because if there is an April election, which I think there will be for the school board, then we would have an opportunity to go to the voters in April, not have to totally pay for an election, and it might be a really good time to bring that in. And so I'm hoping that all of you are as interested in getting that use tax up and running as some of us are. And if it's all right with you, and I spoke with Joanne today about it, we'd like to put that on the December 15th agenda for the work session. And by then, we'll be able to tell what other ballot measures might be out there in April, because that does influence how much we pay for an election. So I'm hoping that's in agreement, or is anybody opposed to that?
No, I think that sounds like a wonderful idea. I do have one question. In regards to timing, when do we have to approve it by council in order to get it on the ballot?
That's what I need to ask Katie.
10 Tuesdays from the election date. So
somewhere in January?
January 20th.
February?
January
26th.
26th.
Yes.
So we could do this. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, based off of pre-filing today, is there any indication that the legislature is actually going to pass this year? I know that they got hearings last year, but
it looks like it, David, and I've gotten this from a couple of different sources that they will pass it this year, but we've got to get everything else implemented in order to make it work. So
yeah, I was just wondering, I was just thinking, let's say there's not, if there's an indication that it's going to pass this year and there's no school district election, I would almost call that we would just spend the money to go to the ballot in April, regardless, if there's a good indication that the legislature is going to pass it this year.
I'm in agreement with you.
I would also just add to that, we don't want legislators using the fact that we don't have the ability to do it as a reason not to pass it in the legislature. Point to Webster Groves, they don't really need it. They haven't passed the use tax. We know that not to be true, but let's be sure that's clear.
That's a good point, Laura.
Yeah, Mayor, is there any additional information you can send us kind of explaining what your committee was doing with the use tax?
You mean, yeah, it's not really my committee, but that's one of the reasons why I wanted to put this on the work session, because we can take a look at what the MML, the Muni League, Metro Mayors United, what all of them are doing at this point, and gather all that information for our December 15th meeting.
So we can get that before the meeting so we have ample time to read it?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I can get some information. I have a folder because this was something already a few years ago that we were pondering. So
okay, great.
I can work with Jerry and Neil and get the information together for the packet.
Great. Well, if possible, I'd like to see it before the packet.
Okay, we'll get it out to you as soon as we can.
All right, great. Thank you.
What's this is a side question, more or less. What's our what's the policy on us? Like, say we get this on the ballot, can council advocate for this?
No,
Okay.
educate. We can always educate. And I can tell you from a few campaigns that I worked on, it's all in the verb that you use. And so you can give people a lot of information, being careful not to use a verb that is an advocacy verb. And so, yeah, it's all about education that we can do.
Thank you.
But David, it's the Hatch Act that controls that. And we know that the Hatch Act is stringently enforced in Washington right now. So,
yeah.
Or not.
Great. All right.
Will it ever be again is the question.
Yes. Yes.
All right. Any other questions? All right, then we're going to go to our topic this evening, which is the community conversations and diversity, equity, and inclusion discussion. And we've left plenty of time for our council to have that discussion and give us your ideas. But before we do that, I want Joanne to update us, because if you remember, we had decided to go with Beloved Community, and there's been a lot of back and forth with them that Joanne can update us with before we have our discussion. But we have plenty of time for that.
So wanted to tell you that we have heard from them, and on December 16th, the department directors and a few of my other staff will be meeting virtually with Beloved Communities. It will be a prep session. And then in January, we will begin doing our equity audit, with our deadline being mid-month. And then they will do a debriefing with us of each of our departments on the information that they gather from the audit. And that at the end of the month, we will do an overall view, and that will be Marie, our new city manager, Dawn, my HR specialist, and I. And then from that, we'll all share the information together. But that's the point. So by the end of January, we'll be all done with the equity audit, and then we'll be able to move forward on the recommendations from that and what we need to do regarding training, etc. Also wanted to let you know, Katie is working with someone from Beloved Community to get the mayor and city council together on this. However, I believe she's supposed to speak with them on Friday if the lady follows up with her. Yes. So Katie will take care of that part for you.
Look for a doodle poll soon.
Yeah, good.
And that's all I have right now. Thank you so much.
Are there any questions that anyone has about Beloved Community and their work? If not, then I'm going to open this up to a discussion and to get the input of the council members about some actions that they may like us to take. Anything from putting an equity commission together to whatever else you all would like to have. And so I'm just going to open this up to an open discussion. And don't everyone speak at once.
Go ahead, Emerson.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm all in favor of maybe putting together the Equity Commission. And also I'm in favor of us getting a professional on board on our staff to help us direct this process, this journey. So that we make sure we go through the process in the right order and we're gathering the best information.
I was going to start with, I do think that we need to set a time frame for training, because everything that we do should be informed by us together having a conversation about what this work means for our community, for the structure of our government, based on our own experiences and based on what we understand about the historical nature of race in our country and in our community specifically. And if we start doing a whole bunch of other stuff without having done the training, I'm afraid that we are not going to do it as successfully as I think all of us want to. And I know that there's a lot of sort of, let's wait for Marie to get on board. But all these organizations are running months in advance of scheduling. And so I think we need to really get serious about scheduling someone to facilitate this training, so that because if we wait another month, then we're putting that off another month. And so, you know, I would really like, frankly, I don't have to do it. Somebody else can do it, or I'd work with somebody to do it, to go back again to some of these facilitators who in the summer were so overtaxed that they couldn't schedule anything with us, and check on availability and check on what kinds of things they're doing. All of them now have had the opportunity to figure out how to do this virtually. And poking around today, it's pretty clear to me that they've adapted well. So I would suggest that my preference would be to not leave here tonight without some sort of way to think about moving forward on training.
Okay.
And I did contact some of my cohorts, pretty much some of them around the country, and they recommended that the council should set its goals, you know, move in with exactly what we want to try to achieve and how we want to achieve those goals. Do we need a facilitator to do that? Sometimes it's helpful, but I think just us discussing it and putting down some action steps ourselves can be massaged at a later date for some more definite goals once we get somebody on board that can guide us. But we do need to go in with goals and objectives. And it's different from the city goals and objectives. What are we trying to conquer with our equity, diversity, and inclusion initiative?
Okay.
I was just going to ask.
I'm with Laura.
Go ahead, Pam. I'm sorry.
Okay. I'm with Laura. I think we need to do a training together. I think that's the best way for us to build a common vocabulary and be able to communicate and talk about these on a level that we've all experienced together. I think there's actions we can all take as individual council members to help be visible in the community with inclusive activities. I think we can communicate with our boards and commissions at this time that this is important to us. Goal setting is important, but to me, I feel like this is such a basic effort that we can get started in, you know, smaller groups after we've got this training and this level set together.
And I agree with what both Pam and Laura was saying, that I think it's important for us to start.
Yes.
So we need to start. I just don't want to continue talking about it and kicking the can down the road. I mean, I would like to see us tonight set a date, calendar, to start, you know, the discussions around the training. What are we going to do? I mean, or are we going to have outlined what we're going to do, or do we know which organization we're going to work with? I know, Laura, you said you kind of looked around today at some of the organizations that we considered last summer, but I mean, can we put some dates, some time commitments here in terms of moving this forward so that we don't just end up continuously discussing it and not seeing any traction or any results?
The question I was just going to pose was, there's no doubt that I think that council collectively needs to be doing training. I would like to see like the long-term effects of what that training does. And I think in other words, we will come and go on this council, and there will be new people. I would like a policy or procedure put in place. And I know that it can obviously be overturned or revised and disregarded by later councils, but something that demonstrates that we are looking for council members and we want a council that is always educated on this and is always educating themselves as we go forward in the future. So there's no doubt that I think that there's two parts to that, or maybe three parts to this. One, that we currently educate ourselves collectively Two, that we ensure that future council members are being educated and that we are being continuously re-educated or further in our education. And then three would be the staff education, the people that have the boots on the ground, so to speak, on a daily basis and interacting with the constituents and the citizens of Webster Groves. So I know that probably a whole bunch of word mesh there, but it just my initial thoughts as we try to deal with this, which I think is an extremely important thing, this training aspect.
Anybody else before I try to summarize a few things that I've heard here?
I just might respond to David. I absolutely agree with that. And I think part of the reason to think about us training together is that we need to think about what is structural, right? The structure is what lives beyond us. And if we get some help thinking about how do we think about our city government, our city structure, how we select council members, how we, you know, I looked up today, and I'm only going to share this because I was I asked Joanne to check for me. And she believes, and Katie will confirm if I'm wrong, that the amount that we're paid dates back to the original charter. And if you adjust for inflation, I won't put our economist mayor on the spot to adjust for inflation on the top of her head, but it would be about $5,000, over $5,000. And so, you know, there are things that weren't necessarily, we don't believe they were designed to be unequitable, but it turns out that means that those of us who can afford to spend the time are the ones who get to spend the time on issues like this. So that's I totally agree. And I'm sorry, I've started my own word salad, David, here. I totally agree that we have to figure out how to think about structure as well as us as individuals.
I'll do that calculation later and send it all to you, because the last time we talked about it, it's a very simple thing. All I need is the consumer price index, and it's just a simple equation to figure that out. But yeah, and that's a charter issue. That's something that we should talk about. Anything else before we try to put this into some action steps here?
I'll just add my support for this being our top priority of these initiatives. I think that the training has to be first, and I agree that Marie will likely be in place for a while before it actually occurs. But I would like to see us at least set a target time frame to try to get started, and to understand that there's a time commitment involved. That it's not a 2-hour training we're talking about. Like we want to do a pretty in-depth seminar of some kind, and I, with the great options that we have in the region, that should be something we can accomplish.
All right, then let's pick up on the training piece, since I think that's what everybody's first priority is to do training. When we started those conversations this summer, Laura had found, and we found a number of people who were good, because we just don't want to do training to do training. We want somebody who really is going to be good and lead us well, because the worst thing with training is those of us who are in education, you get a bad trainer and the whole thing gets turned off for you. So we don't really want to do that. I'm going to suggest, if Laura's willing to do that, and she and I can pick up the list that we had before and take some of those recommendations and see, you're right, if we can reschedule somebody in January or February to be able to do this. If that's agreeable to the council, I think that might be a first step. I don't think we can say we're going to do this on February 1st. Let's see who's out there, see who's good, who's available, what their time frame is. Maybe we come back on December 15th and we'll have some recommendations about bringing somebody in for training. Would that be agreeable with you?
I am happy to participate, and Mayor, I would ask that we go ahead and add beloved community there may be some benefit to having continuity there, so I think we should talk to them as well. They weren't on that original list.
Okay, let's do that. All right, so we have that. Emerson had recommended an equity commission. I don't know if anyone's interested in that, because if you are, it would be to our advantage to take a look at some of the other cities that have equity or related commissions, see how they function, what their mission is, and use that CAPES method, that copy and steal everything method. Find some communities that have successful commissions. But that's up to you to decide whether or not you want to pursue that.
So I'll be the first to admit I don't know enough about equity commissions to speak coherently on it. I think in theory it sounds like a good idea, but I agree, Mary, I would like to know some more information.
Yeah.
But what I would suggest instead would be that we start a charter commission, and the charter commission then would be looking at what commissions we would have, and that would include an equity commission potentially adding into the charter commission. Adding into their duties as a charter commission. I think that it could be more inclusive, more comprehensive if we had a charter commission rather than just looking at this stuff piecemeal.
But
Go ahead, Jerry.
To get a charter commission is going to be a pretty in-depth process to do that. And if we're going to get a charter commission together, we probably ought to do that after we review our policies, because something like changing the salary of council members, which may be something we want to do, that really needs to go to a charter commission to bring that recommendation forward. I'd hold off on that because you sort of have one shot. The charter commission goes to the voters for changes in the charter, and my recommendation would be to hold off. We can form any kind of commission that we want that doesn't have to go through the charter. I mean, a lot of the commissions that we have now, the Arts Commission, the Green Space Advisory Board, none of those are in the charter. They're just something that we formed on our own. So I don't know whether anybody's interested in that.
I mean, I'm going to go back to the whole idea of us just as individual council members, and maybe this is post-training, that we really look at just what we can do, low-hanging fruit as far as more inclusive actions across our city boards and commissions. To me, if I think of if I think of an equity commission, it seems to me that that's another example of kicking the can down the road. And I think we can work on things with our own boards and commissions, perhaps while we're working on doing an equity commission. But it seems like to me, like I said, the easiest priority would be to work with what we have in place now instead of forming another entity.
Okay, so
I would add to that though, Pam. I think it can't just be we as individual liaisons to a commission. I think it has to be we as a council have said we now are tasking each commission as a body to consider equity as part of your mission as a commission. And I think, as you said, then come up with 1 or 2 or 3 actions that relate to that, that can move forward.
I agree. I mean, maybe I didn't use the specific language to that. I'm not saying we would be
I'm
setting
not
the course, but we would leave it up to the commissions that the council as a whole would like to focus on for the next, couple years of doing new things that promote inclusive communities.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't really mean to sound like I was disagreeing with you. I was actually agreeing with you, and I didn't do it very well.
Well, and I'm saying, I'm clarifying what I was saying.
Yeah.
The circular problem I see in this, though, is that it assumes that our commission members have enough training or experience or education in order to understand what possibly diversity, equity, and inclusion would encompass when they look at new ideas and policies and procedures.
And then what comes to mind for me is what type of accountability is involved in just going around in not having a formal commission. I mean, if we're just, I mean, I don't want to be doing so much planning and now we got to do this before we can do that and do this before we can do that. But if we don't have a committed commission around diversity and inclusion, how do we make sure that we have accountability around that subject with the existing commissions that we have? Does that make sense, what I'm asking?
I understand what you're saying too, and I think accountability is key. And I do think that I'm hoping that the equity audit will give some direction into some areas where we should focus our attention the most, especially with boards and commissions. I think about kind of maybe some advice we would get there. But I don't know that it's crazy to consider a temporary consultant or something that we could work with to kind of take this on as a project. If we had that ability to have somebody who is skilled in kind of moving policy forward and also in advancing equity in the community, to meet with each of the commissions and to come back with their recommendations. I'm not entirely on Emerson's gung-ho, let's hire somebody onto the staff. I'm not sure that I'm sold that that's the solution necessarily, but I do think there's no harm in asking the experts, to help us figure out what would do the most, like what would be the greatest benefit there. I know one of the concerns that I've had just getting a little more involved in the board and commission work is just, what are we asking people to give of their time to do? Sometimes it's not, it varies so much from one board to the next. I know in some cases there's real change, there's real action, there's real impact happening in those spaces, but that's not consistently true across all of them. And so if it is a little bit about kind of having each board and commission even internalize, like look at their own sort of mission, and maybe that's part of the equity check or the equity audit for them, is to, let's revisit why we do this and make sure that equity is part of it. But it's hard for me to go out and try to recruit people who are busy, who have equity at the forefront, if what those boards and commissions are doing doesn't really go anywhere. Like it's not a, you want to make sure it's something that is positive and that people feel they're having the impact they're looking to have when they volunteer to do that.
Sarah, I agree with you. I think we do need a facilitator to lead us in this journey, and one of the recommendations that might come out of is that we might not need an equity commission, but I think having an experienced person to lead us through this initiative will be beneficial. So that maybe it might not be an equity commission, might just be something else. But I think us doing it on our own, I think we'll just be lighting some firecrackers that'll be ready to pop, and we have to start all over again. But I just feel that we need that professionalism, someone that really knows how to guide us and what steps to take, when to take them, what our objectives should be, or any goals that we should set before we actually roll anything out to say this is what we're going to do.
Do you think this is what we're going to get from Beloved Community? I think in that audit, is this part of the expectation from them?
Do we know? Because it's sort of new to all of us.
Well, what I believe is going to happen is, just like with a regular audit of our city's financials, for example, they point out those issues that you need to work on and to improve, and they also point out what you're doing well. And so that's why I thought from a city perspective, this would be excellent, and to start and do by department, so that we can see each department, what they're doing well and what they're not, because some departments do certain things very well while others not so much. And so we can work on those specific things and see those areas in which we need to really work harder on them. And there's so many things. I have not presented those to you, but I wanted to send you that PowerPoint, and I had forgotten to do that, I realize now. But it has some details in there. But I think once you have the opportunity to have your first meeting, your prep session with the contact from Beloved Community, you will hear very clearly what specifically it will provide for us. And I think you will be happy with the result.
So with that conversation, we could also perhaps talk a little bit about our boards and commissions and how we would wind our discussion into our board and commission members and organization.
Absolutely. And if there is a need to include, for example, the chairs of each of the boards and commissions, we can do that. We just didn't initially tell our contact that, but we can always do that. It's this isn't like the ending point or anything like that. This is just the beginning.
Well, so that last statement you made, my understanding from poking around their website and reading their blog is, for them and many organizations, the equity audit is step number one of a series of things that you can do with them to develop your organization and develop training and leadership within your organization. So, you know, I think we've been talking a little bit like the equity audit is an end point, but as you just said, it's really a beginning point for us. And I think we should look at it that way.
So there's the next step after that. It's called an equity lens. And that's where they get really into your business and really help separate out information for us. But that would be the second step. The first step is just the audit. So yes, you are right, Laura.
Yeah, well, can we get information on their steps? Step one is here. Are we going to use are you going to use this company, or are we just doing them for the equity audit?
We are using the company. We're not doing the free audit. We're actually paying for the actual more in-depth audit. The summary audit, or the short one, I don't think provides us the value that we need. Okay. And the more intense one would really get us in depth in our own departments and help us to identify those areas that we need to improve.
Okay, so after the audit, they're going to explain to us what they found out from the audit. Then we have the option of going to the next step.
Yes, so
and then we get the option to go to the next step after they finish that. Yes, I guess those are the steps I want to know. Where are we going?
And that's the point. I don't know, because for us, if we feel like the equity audit is just terrible that they've done, or what they presented is not what we need, then we move. I'm not going to sign a contract that makes us holds us accountable or makes us responsible to pay for things that we decide that we don't want. So I just want to do step by step, and we can do that with them. So that's why I want to do the equity audit first. And then if we're good and want to move forward, then we can move forward with the equity lens and then further with the training.
Okay. I guess, did they do a presentation to you or any of the other staff members?
So they already did a presentation to me and my HR specialist. We did this already months ago, and then we just kept trying to contact them and then lost contact. But we're back in touch now and we're moving forward. They've hired more staff and then they're good to go. So December 16th is when the presentation and the preparatory session and all that is going to happen for the department directors and some of my other staff. And then after that, in January, we're going to, by January 15th, the deadline is in place for the equity audit for all the department directors. So they have to have it all done then. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we'll do the debriefing of each department with Beloved Community. And then at the end of the month, we'll meet with our city manager and discuss all of the components of this. And of course, whatever part, if she wants to be involved in each of the departments, that's her, of course, she's more than welcome to do that. But at that point, that's how we intend to do all this and get all of our information together and then present it and share it with each of you.
Okay.
And in the meantime, though, Katie will also arrange for them to meet with the council.
Absolutely.
So that will occur probably before the holidays, right, Katie? Can't hear you, Katie.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, great.
So I can actually say then, Joanne, is that our plan is that we're going to use equity audit to do the audits for our staff.
Beloved community, yes.
Beloved community, yes. Then
As well as us.
As well as us.
Yes.
Okay. So then
All
if we
right.
like what we hear then, if we want them to proceed, they'll do the lens audit or whatever.
Yes.
What was the next step? Yeah. I was just looking for something. Here's the steps as we're going to take with beloved community. Was that it?
Okay.
Beloved community.
Yeah.
So that we know.
Emerson, they lay out on their website pretty clearly what the different components are. I mean, it's a general overview on the website, but it definitely helps you understand that there are stages to this. And they do have, I think it's on Medium, they have a blog in which they kind of write about some of the processes with different organizations that it was helpful in understanding the way they do things as well.
Yeah, I kind of went through their little free, I think they had a free process. I did go through that on their website.
So for those of you who want more information, go to their website and you can see their work and their steps. All right, are we in pretty good shape now for moving forward?
I guess I would just, you know, we set the Charter Commission discussion aside. I think in sort of the step back picture, don't we owe the voters a vote pretty soon on a Charter Commission? If we don't assign one, then we ask them if they wanted to have the opportunity to vote for one. And so I think that means one way or another, relatively soon, we will have some decision on that. And I guess I just wanted that not to be lost in our conversation.
I think that's every 8 years, isn't it? I don't know. We'll have to go back and look at what that amendment is.
That is a good reminder that it did just pass, and it passed with a good percentage of 86% or 82%. So that would be, if we waited for the next election, it would be 22.
Right.
April of 22.
Right.
But it's my understanding we could do that sooner if we wanted, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, we can.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and actually, if we had any recommendations for a change to the charter, it'll probably go on the 2022 ballot.
Likely. Yeah, it just takes, trust me, it takes a while to get a commission together, get the discussions together, get the proper language. And so you are probably talking about, yes, something going on the ballot. And in terms of salary increases, I think anybody who's currently in place is ineligible for them anyhow. So you're talking about future people.
Without a revote, like
an intervening election has to take place. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to clarify something. I think, at least my understanding, and someone can correct me if this is wrong, but in regards to the Charter Commission, if we were to wait for the voters to call for a Charter Commission, which would be the first opportunity would be 2022, the Charter Commission would then come into effect and their recommendations would not go to the voters for an amended charter until possibly 2024. So we are looking at potentially 4 years before we see any revisions or the results of a Charter Commission coming into effect.
I don't think that's right.
David, I don't think that's correct.
That's not right.
All you have to do, and once you form a Charter Commission, and that can be done at the direction of the council, once you form a Charter Commission, they can make a recommendation as to regarding charter changes. And then it can be put on as long as you have backed it up those 10 weeks from whatever your municipal election dates are, you could do it. So theoretically, if you, and again, it would be almost impossible to do, but if you chaired a Charter Commission now, you could have changes on the ballot for April, as long as you had those in by
oh God, no.
Yeah, by January.
I guess I was just trying to,
right,
from a systematic standpoint, like, let's say there's no school board election in 2023. Like, I mean, it just, on a municipal state, and if we're not going to spend extra money, it just, there's a potential that we could see a 2024 election for any recommended changes from a 2022.
Sure, but it's just as likely you could see 23 or 21.
I gotcha.
So,
I gotcha.
Yeah, you could put a commission together next year and then have the recommendations on the 22
Right.
April ballot. So
I think we ought to, give them as much preparation time as needed. It's going to go 2022. They got 2 solid years.
well, yeah.
I thought there was a clock on them. I know we're, for how
There's an
long?
8-year clock. There's an 8-year clock. Once every 8 years.
No. I mean a clock on once it's formed, or I'm sorry, you just said that. We get to set the deadline then.
There's no clock on once it's formed. We've been there. I've been there with several of these, and there's no clock. It will present big
So
community
the charter
discussion.
controls all of that.
Yeah.
Right.
There. Is there anything else? Okay. Does everyone feel like we've had a better discussion now and comfortable?
Well, so I
Laura,
just
are
would
you
like
okay
to
with
validate. I would like to validate what those next steps, time, commitment are. I mean, we're the beloved community is starting with the equity audit. I mean, where are we in terms of our next step for our training to get that initiated? I mean,
okay. Here's what's happening. Beloved community is going to meet with all of us likely in the next week or two. Katie's going to send out a doodle poll on that, and we will have a discussion with them. Laura and I am going to help her, are going to look into the availability of good trainers for us as a council. We will bring that back on December 15th. We'll have a look then at who is available and when they're available.
okay.
Is that right?
Thank you.
Okay.
Can we go ahead and just commit to saying that first week of February, our first work session in February will be the report on what we hear from beloved community? Because, I think a lot of what we say we want to do is we certainly have to approve the next round with beloved community. And then, some of the other stuff has to be informed by that. So I think the sooner we can do that when the audit is complete, and if we set that date, it won't slip.
Good. Can we do that, Joanne? First meeting in February. Let's do that. We'll put that date out there, and it'll be there. Anything else? All right. Good discussion. I think we're okay with our steps forward. And let's see. We have 10 minutes. We have no appointments to boards and commissions to think about. And we have no executive closed sessions. So if you need to go and get a cup of coffee or something, we'll be back at 7:30. Does that work?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. We'll be back at 7:30 then. You can just take a quick break. Okay, it's 7:30 and I think we can go ahead and start this meeting and welcome many of you here to this City Council meeting. And we remind you, if you want to speak this evening, we will read off the comments received by 4 p.m. today for remarks of visitors. And if you're an attendee here, you can go to the list of attendees and raise your hand if you want to speak. And we will provide 3 minutes for you to speak or for comments to be read. And we'll start with a roll call. Katie?
Yes, Mayor. Mayor Welsh?
Here.
Councilmember Arnold?
Here.
Councilmember Bliss?
Here.
Councilmember Franklin?
Here.
Councilmember Smith?
Here.
Councilmember Alexander?
Here.
Councilmember Richardson?
Here.
All right, our first agenda item this evening is remarks of visitors. And Katie and Jennifer are there. How many do we have, Katie or Jennifer?
We have about 7. Somebody may raise their hand to speak.
Hands up.
Hands up. So
Okay.
they'll be one, we'll let them do it first.
Okay.
Oh, we're gonna go with hands up first?
Yes.
Okay.
Ready? All right, it's Farrell Carfield. There we go.
Good evening, council members. This is Farrell Carfield, and I just, especially in light of the work session you just had, I wanted to share an update from our recent community meeting at the Alliance for Interracial Dignity. The week before Thanksgiving, the Alliance hosted a community meeting with members of the Webster Groves Police Community Engagement Board as our guests. We started the meeting with testimony from community members of color about local police encounters that created apprehension and distrust. These speakers gifted honesty to the community, and they offered their stories with hope for healing and progress. Representatives of the Police Community Engagement Board then gave remarks and shared the learning that they've been doing and some of the challenges that they faced. They shared gratitude for the testimonies that we heard together, and they acknowledged that some members of their board have realized they came to the board unprepared and or uninformed as to what their work might be. In many ways, this reflects a broader learning curve in our community amidst a national reckoning around race and racism in America. And we appreciated the honest exchange and the willingness to bring some board vulnerabilities to light. In part because of some lack of prior preparedness, the board in its first 18 months has focused on learning police department policy rather than engaging with the community. And this time that they've spent and that the police department officials have invested will undoubtedly prove valuable in the future. However, operating in a bubble has hindered the board's ability to understand what is needed to build new bridges. The disconnect between what was shared in the testimonies and the work the board has been able to do to date leads us to conclude the board may need additional supports and or some redesign if long-standing community priorities are to be addressed. In particular, we may need an updated ordinance that specifies that a major purpose of the board is healing past injury and rebuilding trust with our communities of color. And we may need a prescribed process to ensure board leadership has a demonstrated capacity to lead towards that purpose. This could include adding a council liaison who's a person of color and or a person with experience leading racial equity initiatives. Adding a chairperson or co-chair who's a person of color or has experience in the same, and or hiring an experienced outside facilitator to design a work plan for the board. And I just have a note, I don't know if all the Proposition P funds are allocated, but I know that at least at one point was a new $1 million allocation to Webster Groves annually. Finally, we ask the board to act with urgency on its own commitment to undertake anti-bias and anti-racism training. In the short term, Dr. Deetra Baker of Eden Seminary, who gave the first testimonial at our meeting, has offered her team and their willingness to give training in the near term. We hope the board will take advantage of this opportunity and continue to pursue longer term training plans that they've been exploring. Unless it's reauthorized, the Police Community Engagement Board is scheduled to sunset on October 1st, 2021. We ask the City Council to make a plan for the coming months to ensure that this board is better positioned to fulfill its promise. In gratitude for your service, the Alliance for Interracial Dignity Coordinating Council.
Okay, I don't see any other hands raised right now. Let me. All right. Okay. So I will proceed with the rest of the remarks of visitors. The first one is from David Rabinow. It was received on November 21st. I am against the proposed Webster redevelopment project. Increased traffic on West Kirkham Avenue west of Rock Hill will result, making an already untenable situation worse. There is virtually no traffic control along this stretch of Kirkham, which borders Larson Park. Speeding and truck traffic is rampant. There are no crosswalks, no stop signs, and no police presence. This already makes it difficult to cross the street from the north side of Kirkham, which has a sidewalk, to the south side where Larson Park is located and which has no sidewalk. In June 2019, Meredith Gugger submitted a petition with over 75 signatures from the neighborhood to the Webster Groves Police Department with these complaints. Yet nothing was done about it. The departments determined that speeding was not excessive, i.e. the speeds had to be over 45 miles an hour in this 25-mile-an-hour zone, ignoring the 75 people who live here and who disagree. Additionally, the speed detector strips the police used to measure traffic were placed on one of the sharpest bends in the road, resulting in somewhat lower speeds than occur elsewhere on the street. There are so many other reasons I'm opposed to the enormous size of this development. It would damage the Shady Creek environment. I also especially oppose subsidizing businesses by using TIF funding and taking property through eminent domain. Webster Groves government seems to put business before its residents. That needs to stop. Webster Groves needs to start listening to the people who live here. The next one is from Tim Hebel, and that was received on November 23rd. My wife Asher and I have lived and worked in Webster almost our entire lives. We own a business here and have been very active members of the community. I am the finance chair on the board of the Webster Groves Chamber of Commerce, and Asher is on the board of the Historical Society, so we try to give back to our community as much as possible. We also consider ourselves to be law-abiding citizens. When we decided to purchase a golf cart, I did research to confirm that they were legal to operate on Webster roads. I did not find anything to the contrary, along with the circumstantial evidence of seeing people driving them around. Imagine my surprise when we were pulled over 3 times within a couple of weeks. I will say the police officers involved could not have been nicer and did not issue any kind of fine or ticket. I was definitely impressed by their handling of the situation. Due to these incidents, even though I believe golf carts to be 100% legal in Webster, we are now paranoid every time we have used it since getting pulled over. It takes the relaxation out of driving it to our wife's parents' house a few blocks away for dinner. And when we are hoping we don't see one of the police officers who believe it to be illegal. Sometimes we do pass Webster police officers who just wave and smile, which makes the situation even more confusing. Selfishly, I would obviously love to see the changes proposed above to be accepted for my own family's enjoyment, but I would also love to see them implemented for the community at large. We keep seeing more and more golf carts in Webster, and I don't want other people to suffer from the same confusion. Webster seems like a perfect community for golf carts, so hopefully the proposed changes in this petition can be implemented. And then he has another statement. This document seeks to guarantee the legality of golf carts in Webster Groves by the proposed following actions. Number 1, to issue a directive to Webster Groves Police Department to cease enforcement of contested ordinances as they relate to the question of golf cart legality. This order shall remain in effect until the conclusion of objective 2. 2 is a future inclusion of a new ordinance addressing golf cart legality and regulation, or the addition of clarifying language to section 60.635 of the Municipal Traffic Code. It is our belief that golf carts are currently legal in Webster Groves. Pervasive confusion exists among Webster Groves law enforcement as to whether or not golf carts are legal in the city. Golf carts are not play vehicles and do not belong in the same category as motorized play vehicles, roller skates, coasters, and similar devices. Golf carts are a safe, economical, and environmentally friendly method of travel within the borders of our city. They help people appreciate the slower side of life. Webster Groves is an ideal city for golf cart use. It is primarily residential and contains mostly 25 to 30 mile per hour roads. Many golf cart owners and operators already reside in Webster Groves. If golf carts are in fact illegal in the city, the law is being ignored or confusion exists among residents. It is fact that golf carts are currently legal in the state of Missouri. They are not classified as low-speed vehicles. Not being defined as a low-speed vehicle, the state of Missouri does not require golf carts to be registered or licensed. We implore the city administrators, law enforcement, and legislators to guarantee the legality of golf carts on city roads by enacting the suggestions within. Our next one is from Christina Schmeigel and was received on November 29th. Dear City Council members, as a professional artist residing in Webster Groves, I am deeply concerned about the appropriateness of the proposed redevelopment project. I was Associate Professor of Sculpture at Webster University for 10 years before moving to China in 2004, when my husband and I returned to St. Louis in 2017 for his professorship at the Olin School of Business at WashU. We knew without a doubt that we wanted to live in Webster. We love the modest scale of the built environment here, the city's attention to historical preservation, the walkability and spaciousness of the neighborhoods, and the pockets of wild areas in amongst the housing that allowed birds and wildlife to thrive. The recent development choices that the city has made have been a disappointment to us. The hollowing out at the four corners of Elm and Lockwood for the parking lot surrounding Regions Bank, the lack of connection to local architecture in the design of the L apartments, the permitting of massive amounts of new construction in the less affluent areas of Webster that replaces modest, affordable homes with huge, expensive houses that are inappropriately scaled to their neighbors and are too large for their lots, thereby destroying the green space that Webster's so lovely to live in. The proposed project is the most egregious example of the insensitive development yet. The development is utterly out of scale to its site. Buildings at that height will loom as high rises when seen from Kirkham or even Lockwood. The density of population will increase traffic and create the need for more parking areas. Extremely worrisome is the destruction of wildlife corridor created by Shady Creek and its underbrush. How will the city justify levying fines for cutting down historic trees when it is willing to decimate an entire wildlife sanctuary? But most worrisome of all is the relationship of the development to Webster as a community. The one thing we have never liked about Webster is its lack of ethnic, cultural, and socioeconomic diversity, especially in this period following the reawakened awareness of the racial inequity that is at the core of American life. It is shameful that Webster is not using this opportunity to work with the historic community of North Webster and of the Old Community Baptist Church. This high-end development will tower over the church and its community garden and be of little service to them. Ignoring this community is a perfect example of how insidious our racism is. It really pains me that the city is catering solely to wealthy developers and a wealthy tax base in developing this area. Even there, I am baffled. Do wealthy people really want to live in seven-story high-rise buildings immediately on a functioning rail line? The project seems truly misguided, and I hope City Council will reconsider it entirely. I am not at all against development in Webster Groves, but I would like for new development to enhance the quality of life in our city. I need to take a drink. Lots of long remarks. All right, our next one is from Dave Buck and was received on the 30th. Mayor, City Council, SG Collaborative, and Standpoint. This remark is a suggestion from several residents, including me, who responded to my recent informal Facebook survey. Given that it has been 7 full months since the first virtual town hall was held on April 23rd, this specific suggestion was for City Council and SG Collaborative to go back, revisit, reevaluate, and if necessary, refocus and revise the city's primary objectives listed in its original request for proposals, which SG Collaborative responded to. The second paragraph on page 1 of the RFP reads, the city's primary objectives are to remediate conditions that could lead to the area becoming blighted, remove conditions that constitute an economic or social liability to the city, promote new development, and enhance stability in the area. To facilitate the redevelopment of the area, the city will consider the use of redevelopment incentives. Any proposal must demonstrate that but for the use of the proposed incentives, the project is not feasible and will not be completed. Given the learning from the 3 virtual town halls, the engagement and knowledge gathering from the community, and SG Collaborative's preliminary conceptual design plan and resident reactions to it, is there benefit for the good of the project and the good of the city to reevaluate the objectives of the project, and if necessary to change, clarify, and focus them? In short, what do we know today that we did not know or could not have predicted 7 months ago? Here's my own personal view. We should strive to establish SMART goals for the RFP that are specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. Such goals do not exist in the original RFP. As such, in my humble and imperfect opinion, SG Collaborative's design plan has reacted to community input, but has no real focus and is trying to do way too much and be all things to all people. As such, to me, this project needs real focus. Do only a few fundamental things, but do them extraordinarily well. So what is the real focus and goal of this project? Affordable housing, build the Old Webster Business District, maximize tax revenue, eliminate blight, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think it would help if we knew and be fair to the SG Collaborative. My apologies, but it is the way I feel. Okay, the next one is from Liz James and was also received on the 30th of November. I know there have been many letters about the proposed redevelopment of Old Webster, and I'm grateful to live in a community where we strive to progress forward with careful consideration. After watching town halls and neighborhood discussions and hearing many new perspectives, I see that there's much to like about the expressed goals of the project: affordable housing, new amenities and businesses, and new residents to support our existing businesses, and a potentially more diverse community. All of this is desirable. Is there a way to achieve these goals a little more organically than the current proposed plans and without losing the wooded corridor along Shady Creek? We are Webster Groves, after all, and the various wooded and green spaces are one of the most unique and attractive things about our town. The Liberty Oak tree at the end of my street is literally older than the country itself. Can we fight climate change on a local level and still have community growth? That, to me, is cutting edge. Why not improve and clean up the green space and wooded corridor on Kirkham like the Nature Sanctuary 1 block east, using similar community support for stewardship? Maybe the farmer's market / outdoor venue idea could be worked into this space, or perhaps at Barbie Park. This could be a great way to connect the greater community more. The remaining wooded corridor could buffer the new building scale of the development, which I do hope can be smaller, and the green space would be an attractive amenity to the new residents. Why not build along the existing footprint of Pacific and face the new retail toward the city? Perhaps landscape the trackside with natives and build a footbridge connecting to Old Webster with an observation platform for watching the trains, celebrating another unique characteristic of our historic town. Maybe consider adding some green rooftops if we are looking for something cutting edge. I have heard it suggested that plans could include the area around Thornton and Kirkham, which also could use improvement. Perhaps using both sites for housing and retail without removing everything existing could feel a little more organic and create some continuity along the lengthening greenway, connect the community more, and spread out the added traffic that so much new development will bring. Could something like this be less wasteful and possibly less expensive than buying everything on the proposed development site and redoing infrastructure? Could it also allow for more existing businesses to stay where desired? Consider extending the greenway past Rock Hill along Kirkham, creating a needed continuous pathway for walking students, and avoid cutting trees along Shady Creek. The unique character of our town is not just our historic architecture and strong community, though we can always be better. It is also the natural spaces. Webster is a unique and special place to live, and I'm excited to see efforts to make our community more accessible. I hope that we can consider more options to achieve the growth that our community wants and improve and protect the old growth and wooded spaces that we already have. I do understand that there are many factors that impact the viability of various ideas. I just hope that we will seriously consider the environment and the benefit that wooded spaces can bring to the community, and also the possible benefits of spreading out this development. Another drink. Sorry. Okay. Next we have Angela Niebrug, and that was received on the 30th of November. Hello. Thank you for considering my opinion and the opinion of others in the community. I'm urging you to downsize the Webster redevelopment project proposal. The current proposal is too big for the Webster footprint. First, please consider the increased traffic. I have heard the developers are conducting a traffic study. Currently, in this COVID era, traffic is around 20% of what it was a year ago in pre-COVID times. On a normal weekday rush hour, the intersection of Brentwood and Newport is at capacity, as well as the intersection of Elm and Kirkham. The turn lanes are at capacity, resulting in the straight lanes backing up to the railroad tracks by Brentwood material, or sometimes further. It is not uncommon to be stopped for an accident at Brentwood and Marshall. It's a dangerous stretch of road during rush hour. These intersections cannot take an increase of over 2,000 additional residents trying to return home. Again, please recognize COVID traffic is not comparable to normal traffic, and we all hope to return to our previous normal soon. Second, a 7-story building is ridiculous. I don't believe that there are any other buildings that tall in Webster, and clearly it doesn't belong. I understand the proposal details the building to be at a lower elevation, but that does not hide the fact that it is still a monstrosity. Please consider downsizing the overall footprint. This will also help aid the traffic issue. Remember the compromise made a few years back with the L Apartments on Lockwood, a 4+ story building proposal to just 3-story The building fits in more with Webster architecture and was a good compromise between the developers and the community. Third, please consider the green space being eliminated. Webster does not have many parks or public areas where wildlife can thrive. Building over the green space will eliminate wildlife, trails, and the beautiful lush greenery. Lastly, please consider the small businesses who have occupied the current stores for generations. They have been loyal to Webster, please be loyal back. They need all the help they can get right now. Why eliminate many established businesses just to fit in a few new? I appreciate the want to grow Webster and to make room for new residents. However, the current proposal is too egregious. Please consider downsizing to keep the quaintness and character of Webster. There is a reason we don't all live in Kirkwood. And our final one is from the Webster Groves Nature Study Society and was received on December 1st. The Webster Groves Nature Study Society is a 100-year-old natural history organization with a wide variety of interests, including birding, botany, entomology, conservation, and nature photography. The Webster Groves Nature Study Society is concerned about the proposed Old Webster redevelopment project, which would affect the humans and natural environment of Webster Groves. Webster Groves is a pleasant place to live, in large part due to its shady tree-lined streets, large yards, and green space. This large-scale project would dramatically increase the local population, traffic, noise, and stormwater runoff, changing the character of Webster Groves. The proposed Great River Greenway Riverwalk would directly impact the Shady Creek Nature Sanctuary and other natural communities along the creek. WGNSS has documented 180 birds in the nature sanctuary, with several identified as conservation priorities. Webster Groves residents have worked hard to replace invasive species with native species, creating high-quality habitat. The removal of natural cover along Shady Creek will directly impact bird and other wildlife use. Parts of the creek will be moved or placed in culverts. Birds commonly avoid high-density urban areas due to increased noise and light pollution. Collisions with high-rise building windows are responsible for high bird mortality rates. There are existing dedicated bike lanes on Kirkham Avenue. The proposed Riverwalk would be an expensive duplication. We are concerned that engineered stormwater detention systems will not be sufficient to compensate for the significant increase in the amount of impermeable surface area and the loss of the pollution removal capacity and ecological functions of the natural cover. When making your decision, please consider the environmental impacts of the Webster Groves redevelopment project and GRG Riverwalk. We appreciate this opportunity to comment. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you, Jennifer, for reading all of those. We appreciate them. All right, we're going to move on to new business and then to unfinished business. Bill number 9131. Karen, you're unmuted. Could you call for the third and final reading and subsequent adoption of Bill 9131?
Yes. Oh, I just lost it. Wait a minute. Mayor, I would like to call for the third and final reading of Bill number
9131.
9131 and its subsequent adoption.
Second.
Bill 9131, third reading. An ordinance of the City of Webster Groves, Missouri, amending Chapter 53 zoning by amending code sections 53.020, .047, .057, .067, .067, .077, .117, .157, .180 through 53.189, .233, .243 of the zoning ordinance in order to clarify and update regulations for parking development standards in residential, commercial, industrial, and multiple family residence districts and matters related thereto.
Okay, are there any more issues? We have been through this for quite a few months, and if there are no more issues and questions, we will call for the vote. Katie?
Yes. Councilmember Arnold?
Yes.
Councilmember Bliss?
Yes.
Councilmember Franklin?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Emerson?
Yes.
Councilmember Alexander?
Yes.
Councilmember Richardson?
Yes.
Mayor Welch?
Yes. Yay, 9131 has been passed.
David, would you like to go through that again?
Well, one more time. One more time.
One more time. Okay, so does anyone care to remove anything from the consent agenda? Hearing that no one cares to remove anything, there's a wonderful part of amending that budget for our fiscal year 2021 that includes that Joanne's good work on the CARES Act with $1.57 million. So that's a good thing. All right, let's see. Yes, thank you, Joanne. Pam, you're unmuted. Would you like to call for the approval of the consent agenda?
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to call for the approval of the consent agenda and its subsequent adoption.
Second.
Councilmember Bliss?
Yes.
Councilmember Franklin?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Alexander?
Yes.
Councilmember Richardson?
Yes.
Mayor Welsh?
Yes.
Councilmember Arnold?
Yes.
All right, we have no appointments to boards and commissions. We have no executive closed session. For those participants, quite a few of you who are here, please join us at our next meeting on December the 15th. We will have a couple of good topics, especially on our work session. We will talk about Wayfair and the use tax. And with that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
All right.